With us is Anton Schutz, the President and Chief Investment Officer with Mendon Capital Advisors. Anton, great to have you with us. Rising rates, good for banks, but a flattening yield curve is not, and that's exactly what we've been seeing lately.
Well, I believe the flattening curve is temporary. I do think long rates will continue to rise. And a lot of banks will really benefit from short-term rates rising. So if the Fed actually starts raising rates, a lot of banks have LIBOR and prime-based loans, and their earnings will benefit dramatically from that. I think we'll see the long end head back up again. I think today's, is a tantrum. I think Friday was a tantrum, and I think you really think about the fact that the economy is really going to do very well, and corporate loan demand will be there. So rising rates, the stronger loan growth means earnings estimates are too low next year for the banks.
In the past couple of months, we've seen banks, along with a lot of other value sectors, do quite well. We can resume those highs that we've seen. And also, we sort of get a do-over at this point. So which names do you think you could buy at this point that you maybe have missed out on over the past couple of months?
Sure. I think there's a number of names that are really interesting to me. Names like a Cadence Bank, which is a couple companies got together in a merger, created a $44 billion bank. A lot of your viewers have never heard of. One of the cheapest PEs in the mid-cap banking space. So really like that management team. They're going to buy back a lot of stock. They have a lot of capital. And I think they'll get great loan growth out of the Southeast and Texas. And then I also like New York Community Bank, which is really very fintech forward leaning. They're in the middle of a merger. And again, that merger may get pushed out. I think the administration has been anti-bank merger, but the merger makes sense. And I think they're really going to be able to employ things like blockchain. They're buying. It's a very large mortgage servicer and originator, and I think it's going to work very well. So, fintech-leaning banks are really going to end up being winners here. So that's certainly one of them. And among the big, I still think Wells Fargo is a self-help story. Their earnings will go up quite a bit if interest rates rise. They have a lot of cash to be able to deploy, and they're very interest sensitive. So I think earnings estimates will go up for this entire group, assuming the economy does well, and I assume it's going to do well. I think this is a temporary blip.
How does the move away from using banks as mortgage lenders affect these banks? In other words, the largest mortgage lender right now is Rocket Mortgage or Quicken Loans, as I understand it. And whether they're a bank or not, I don't know, but they're not a traditional bank in the sense of a brick and mortar place like a Wells Fargo or a JP Morgan. How does that change the equation here, if at all?
Sure. I think that, banks have been originating and selling mortgages for a long time now. It's really banks that originate in their own backyards actually have benefited dramatically from some of the housing booms. In places like Texas and Tennessee, where, those economies are booming, people are buying houses, they're originating them and selling them. And that business has been great. But it's also very important to right-size that business too, right? As volume drops off, you've got to be able to cut costs. So I think banks have done a pretty good job of it, particularly the regionals have done a very
Capital.